Burma is undergoing major political and economic changes as it takes steps towards democracy. Joining us now with more is Phil Robertson. He is the Deputy Director of Human Rights Watch's Asia Division. He joins us now live via Skype from Bangkok, Thailand. Great to have you with us on the program today.
Thanks for having me.
So we know this is going to be a historic visit to Burma for the president, but aside from the photo ops, what steps do you think need to be taken in order for the human rights record in that country to improve?
Well, there are still over 300 political prisoners in Burma's prisons who are languishing after years of being in prison and waiting to be released. The government of Burma has said that they will release them, but it's unclear when. Obviously, we hope that President Obama will be able to get some of them out. There's also a whole raft of still rights repressive laws that are on the books, and so far no commitment from the government of Burma to actually take action to revoke those or reform those laws. So there's a lot for President Obama to ask for. We're also very concerned about the situation in Arakan State. We've just released a new satellite imagery showing the destruction of Muslim communities in many parts of the state. And the fact that the government of Burma seems to be unable to stop that violence is a very serious concern as well.
So certainly a number of issues that still persist in that country. We know Burma, of course, is emerging from decades of oppression. So give us a sense, though, of how things have changed, if at all, in that country in the past 20 months. Are we seeing the steps towards democracy?
Well, it's too quick to say. I mean, what we've seen is obviously the convening of parliament, a by-election that saw Aung San Suu Kyi and her party being able not only to run for parliament but also to win seats. Various different progress in terms of media reform, freedom of expression, freedom of the press. But we're also seeing very disturbing developments as well. People being put in prison for protesting publicly because there's a new law on public assembly that says if you don't have permission to protest, you could be sentenced to a year in jail if you go ahead. So it's a mixed bag right now. It's still in transition, and obviously it's improved greatly from 18 months ago, but we're not out of the woods yet.
No, certainly a long ways to go, but when we're dealing with a country who has not had any kind of democratic establishments for so many years, do we need to adjust our expectations on just how quickly the country can transition? Or do you think these are steps that, whether it's from President Obama or even within the political establishment in Burma, can those steps be taken sooner than later?
It's less about the actual timetable, although obviously we want to see progress on human rights come sooner. The concern is about possible backsliding because there is still a very, very strong military in Burma. It has off-budget authority. It has 25% of the seats in the parliament reserved to it. It has the ability to, through a National Defense and Security Council, dismiss the government if it so deems. So there's a lot of concern about where is the military and how much are they on board with all these reforms. No one has really sort of undertaken reforms that would touch the sort of prerogatives of the military. And where we see the military operating in, for instance, minority ethnic states like Kachin State up in the north, they're still the same old rights-abusing military that we dealt with for years. So the question is not whether the timetable is right. The question is everybody on board in Burma for this reform program and for greater respect for human rights? And that's the thing that's keeping us up at night.
And at the end of the day, though, certainly President Obama's trip is going to bring a lot of attention to Burma, which can be a good thing in terms of highlighting the issues. But at the end of the day, in order to reach the reform that you're speaking of, does it have to come from within? Does the political will need to be from within Burma, or do you need the outside attention?
Well, I think you need both, frankly. I think there has to be continued pressure on the government to reform. Simply because you have to give leverage to the people who want to push the reforms, who want to improve human rights, to be able to prevail over some of the more conservative elements, particularly in the military, who see the situation as just fine as they have it now. I mean, these are people who have been in the driver's seat for many years, and the concern is that they're being sort of dragged into this reform process, and if it goes too far, they may, have a backlash that might endanger those reforms. So the concern is that we need to have external pressure that continues to buttress and support internal reformers, but it can't come too soon. It can't simply give everything to the government of Burma on a golden plate, because the concern is that they'll take the international community's concerns for granted and stop listening, and once again sort of proceed on their own merry way, as they did for many years under the military governments.
All right, certainly a situation that we will continue to follow, and we thank you, Phil, for joining us with helping us to highlight some of those issues and concerns.
Thank you so much for having me on the program.
All right, that is Phil Robertson joining us live via Skype.